What's up, current and future disc golf addicts? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be taking along on a round at Live Oak Brewing disc golf course just outside of Austin, Texas. So this is going to be stop number 4 of my Austin, Texas trip, which took place in late April of 2024. This is a course that we didn't know much about, with the focus on this stop being equal parts disc golf and then also enjoying the brewery on location. Stepping up to hole 1, this looked initially very inviting off the tee, but I actually found that there was a lot more danger to find, and this is a little bit of foreshadowing too as to what's to come here. Fortunately, I do get really lucky on hole 2, actually hitting the Mando pole and then leaving me with a tricky low ceiling approach towards the basket. Just trying to give myself a par putt here, which I do sort of achieve in finding, but with that long putt, at this point I wasn't feeling too confident, and unfortunately end up taking the bogey. Hole 3 was a blind shot off the tee. This was one that we did have to run up the fairway to try locate the basket because none of us believed where the map was showing it was. And I ended up pulling my forehand a little bit too far out left, never really giving it a chance to flex back towards the basket. Hole 4 is the first moment, at least, where we noticed that the maps had these clearly defined OBs, which is that mow line that you're seeing on the fairway. So to throw to the basket of hole 4, you're throwing over all of this OB out to the right. And I actually ended up getting really lucky here where there was this OB bush island, and I was barely in bounds, leaving myself actually with a birdie opportunity there, but not being able to convert. Now what you're also seeing here on hole 5, if I'm not mistaken, is the very windy conditions that we were facing. I wasn't finding too much of a difficulty on the putting greens because of the wind, but I was especially finding it difficult trying to, as well as gauge the distances, really just find the right discs and lines for the holes. In a sense, because of the style of disc golf course that this was, it felt different. I'm not even sure how while you were playing it, but it was not gimmicky, but in that direction to where you really have to find this crafty side of your game. For example, with this triple mandatory that you have to find yourself throwing, but also avoiding the OB in the tall grass. And at a place like this, there are birdieable short holes that you really have to take your opportunities on, but I'm really not converting on any of these. Hole 8 was another one of those holes to where we couldn't actually see the basket until one of us had actually gone up here and saw that the basket was this really high elevated basket right next to these massive barrels here. And really, I was feeling a little bit frustrated not being able to convert, end up running some putts that I shouldn't, and actually end up walking away with a bogey. Moving on to hole 9, a really cool hole. Unfortunately, you can't see it from the camera angle here, but slightly bending left to right, perfectly for another one of those glidey putter shots. And that leaves me with just a pitch up there to take my part and then move on, try to find some more birdie opportunities later. Hole 10 was another hole that you see from the bushes off to the right how windy it was really getting. And so I'm disking up, but at this point I'm forcing the disc a little bit too much on my sidearms, really powering up on them even though I shouldn't, and just end up yanking it off to the left, leaving me with this putt then for a par. Hole 11, this one did have a little bit of OB long, if I remember correctly, and also this little mound at the center of your screen that you're seeing that my disc is skipping around was also defined as OB, but I ended up skipping far enough past it and around it that I actually had the sneaky Anheuser putt that I thought I could get chain height, but ended up catching some of the branches and leaves there. Fortunately converting the par putt, because that was actually a little bit longer than I would want to admit after hitting the bush. Now this hole was surprisingly easy, at least compared to the previous holes where we were playing, where the only real danger is if you land short right inside that bush. But coming in at the distance that it was, this was just a justice forehand for me. But again, not converting on the birdie opportunities. Hole 13 is actually an island hole that it didn't have a clearly defined drop zone, but the island itself was very clearly defined with these flags. And so I actually ended up missing it off to the left, meaning I had that as a drop zone par attempt and having to tap in the bogey. Hole 14 is our only par 4 of the day, coming in at 515 feet. Again, playing here for the first time ever, we had a really hard time trusting where the basket was because we couldn't see anything. And at this point, I still had no clue where the basket was, throwing that initial tee shot just over the hill, trying to blast something on a touch of Anheuser and have it fade back, which ended up working great, and ended up pitching my harp then and walking away with the birdie. Hole 15, a really short hole, but again a very unique hole in the sense that the low ceiling really forces an awkward shot that I find really hard to really choose and commit to the line. And especially because the basket was slightly on top of this hill, meaning that you had to throw up but through the low ceiling and somehow navigate your way onto the green. Hole 15 was ever so slightly downhill off to the left, really just a big hyzer hole. And coming in at the distance, I was trying to throw a harp just roughly 250 feet, but end up throwing it way out right and not really committing to that medium line. And so I kind of found myself in a weird position there, just having to pitch out a little poke and pray putt, see if I could take a sneaky birdie from there. Hole 17 looked like a very great opportunity to take a birdie, but this one also ended up being a very windy green and ended up catching the underside of my disc and really just flinging it out left, leaving myself with no real look. Hole 18, I do end up early releasing my forehand Thunderbird, leaving me in a really awkward position trying to throw this Sky Anheuser with my Recco and float it up towards the basket. And fortunately do give myself a par look here and leaving me with this just inside circle 1 putt to save the par, putting me at +2 for the round. If you enjoyed what you saw, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content.